Okay, welcome everyone. Today's episode 178, Orienteering for Fun and Function. And we're going to help you guys learn to navigate your way around the state fairgrounds and out in the woods too. So if you're tuning in from home, remember that we have the multimedia viewer available. Please enter your questions into Q&A. That's in the lower right-hand corner. We're going to reserve the chat function for posting links so you guys can go and check those out. And our hosts today from the fair are Benji and Jeff. I don't see those guys in front of a camera anywhere yet. And we have Julia and William doing our broadcast from the greater metro and my neighbor in Duluth.
I have two.
So welcome everyone. Benji, you got anything you want to let the folks know from there?
Craig, thank you for doing that introduction. This is a first for us. We've done these live MOS programs several times now, I guess. This is episode 178. So 178 times we've done this, but we've only done a couple live from the fair ones, Jeff, and we're sitting behind the camera today because we wanted to show everybody the live audience out here, which is kind of fun. So it's wonderful water day out at the fair. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we get to do kind of a really special, for me, talk because we had this orienteering talk idea, I guess, floating around for a few years, and I decided to reach out to the Minnesota Orienteering Club, and lo and behold, it was one of the former students that and there goes my phone. Imagine that. Cassie, I didn't hear your warning. I'm sorry. But it was one of my former students from the Environmental Learning Center down in Northfields, Will Daniels. His parents and him are very involved in the Minnesota Orienteering Club, so it's really cool to be able to reconnect with former students and their families and be able to do this. So thank you so much, Minnesota Orienteering Club, for coming and helping us out today. And Will and Julia, I don't have your introductions in front of me. Forgot to print those out before we came out today. So I'm going to pass it off to Will and Julia, let you guys introduce yourself. I'm going to go on the mute side here, and those of you in the audience here live at the fair can kind of follow along, and you'll be able to hear this. And we have JD and Gwen Daniels and Peter Daniels that are here to help us. We got a little orienteering course that we're going to be doing during the Q&A section. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Will and Julia and let you guys introduce yourself.
Great. Thanks very much. Really appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to be here today. And thanks for everybody at home and at the fair for joining us to learn a little bit about the Minnesota Orienteering Club and how to orienteer for fun and for function, i.e. survival sometimes. So Will and I will both introduce ourselves, and then we're going to share the presentation. So I'm Julia Bonin, and I'm actually a researcher at the University of Minnesota in the Fisheries and Wildlife Department. And I started orienteering in 1991 when I came to the U of M to go to grad school, and I found a posting on one of the posting boards, and it mentioned the Orienteering Club. So I joined another couple of students, and we went to a couple of meets together. And I was a little timid at first, and we went out together on a couple of courses. But by the time I had done one or two orange courses, with somebody, I felt competent to go out and orienteer by myself and increase the difficulty level of the events that I was doing. And my background had been in cross-country running, which was why I think I was particularly drawn to orienteering, because it's a way to do that kind of cross-country running as an adult at a sanctioned event and be competitive. So that was fun for me. I also use orienteering, my orienteering skills in adventure racing, where you bike or hike or run and paddle in a very long course, anywhere from 4 to 32 hours. And you've heard of some of the multi-day adventure racing too. I don't do any of those, but I've done some 32-hour races. And so I like to use my navigation skills that way. And then there's a picture of there on the bottom with me and my sister doing the adventure racing in our blue shirts there. And then I also like to do wayfinding or navigating in wild places such as the Boundary Waters. So my other sister and I are in our boat up in the Boundary Waters last fall. And so I'm going to turn over to Will to introduce himself.
All right, thanks, Julia. Thanks, Craig and Benji, for putting this together. And just to reiterate what Benji said, it's been really fun to reconnect with Benji, the host of this MOS program. Benji taught me pretty much everything I know about outdoor survival and skills back when I was a kid growing up in Northfield. I love orienteering. I've been doing it for a long time. Currently, I'm a University of Minnesota Duluth professor in geology. And as a geologist, we use maps quite a lot. So I have to be very familiar with how to interpret maps. And I'm a little old-fashioned where I keep paper maps in my car. And I like getting lost in the woods, and even more, I like getting unlost. So these pictures I have up here to represent kind of my background. The big picture is a map that I made in 5th grade. It was the first orienteering map I made, and my 5th grade class went out and did the orienteering course. And then this other picture is a more recent one from this last summer, doing an adventure race, which involves canoeing, biking, and trekking, all while orienteering. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me, and we'll pass it back to Julia here.
All right, so we're going to start out with the real basics. What is orienteering? So real simply, orienteering is the sport of navigation using a highly detailed map. And I'm going to say sport or pastime or activity too, because it doesn't have to be sporting. You can just be out casually hiking and do orienteering. So it can be for everybody. But the maps are really specific, and you can see this one is a really detailed map with some pretty good topography there, and it's got part of a course on it. We're going to look at all those kinds of details in a little bit here. And I'm going to mention that you might hear us referring to orienteering as simply O. So if we say that, we're talking about orienteering, but that's kind of shortcut language for us orienteers. So why would someone want to orienteer? In my case, I love it for fitness and sport. So I'm kind of competitive, so I can go out there and compete against my peers on a course and compare results at the end, regardless of whether I did well or not so great. I enjoy it for that competitive aspect, and then for the fitness. And it's also an intellectual exercise for your brain, because you actually do have to be processing and thinking while you're navigating using your map through the terrain. So you might enjoy trail running. This adds an extra element to trail running, where you have to apply the map and then be navigating through the map. It's fun for all ages and abilities. Our club, we see participants who are literally infants being carried by their parents. And then when they get to be toddlers, they're out doing the course. And you'll go to events where there'll be people in their 80s and 90s participating in it. And so we have courses for all abilities, and we'll talk in more detail about that. It allows us to go running or hiking in the woods with purpose in those beautiful settings. And so I think a lot of us who do orienteering are really drawn to being in the woods in different areas of the state and the country, and sometimes even the world. So that's something that's a real draw for many of us. And it's a way to build your skill, confidence, your self-esteem, and your ability to travel in unfamiliar areas and places. So you can, if you have a map and you know how to use the map and your compass, you can feel confident to travel through those areas, navigating yourself through them. And then we'll talk a little bit about survival too. So the function part is that you can use these skills for survival. So you might go out in some wild terrain, and if you get a little lost, as Will was mentioning, you can get unlost as well using the skills that you've learned in orienteering. So just quickly, about 4,000 people a year get lost just in U.S. national parks alone. Overall, about 50,000 people get lost nationwide, and many of those people require search and rescue. Now, if you are lost in such a way that you require search and rescue, I'm going to go down to the bottom point there. When in doubt, stay put. But if you have navigation skills, a lot of times you can get yourself out of these kind of messes that you might have gotten yourself into by, taking a deep breath and applying your map and compass in the skills that you've learned to navigate your way out of a lost situation. So I'm not going to go into details there, but kids, hunters, cross-country skiers, those are types of outdoor recreationists that might actually get misplaced or lost out in natural terrain, and would benefit from the skills of orienteering. So again, what is orienteering? So the object of orienteering is to find a number of control points. They're marked on the map and they're located in a park, but they're not hidden. So if you get to the right location, you'll be able to find the control that you're looking for. So those control points. And you can see the map on the right there has 8 controls. So it's numbered 1 through 8 in those magenta circles. And so that's a course that has 8 controls on it. So you would navigate to those controls in order using your map and a compass. And you can do it against time if you like, or if you want to just be more leisurely, you can come and do a leisurely walk and navigate through those courses. So you don't have to compete per se. The courses are always timed, and that's just because we have, we have to get people in and out through this course. And we have to end it at a certain time. So you will have to pay attention to the time, but you don't have to compete. And then you can do these events with your solo or with your friends. So we allow at our events, we will have small groups that go out. So a family group or a Boy Scout group or something like that. Groups of 2 or 3 is usually typical, if not done solo. So the controls look like this. They're these orange box kites. We call them flags or sometimes bags. The course, as I noted, has a preset number of these controls that'll be out on the course. So at every one of those 8 locations on the previous map, you would find one of these flags. It'll be placed in the terrain and then marked correspondingly on the map. And it'll be on a particular landscape feature, so perhaps a hilltop. And there will be a little box on the map, a little area on the map that'll have the clues listed for each of the features that you're going to be looking for as you navigate through the course. So the feature could be a hilltop, it could be a trail intersection, the edge of a marsh, or other landscape features that you can readily find using your map and compass. And so when you get to the right place, you'll look at the box that's on there, and I think I can point out there's the box there, 224. And so there will be an ID number that'll be in the clue sheet on your map and on the control on the ground. And if those match, then you're at the right place. And each of those then has a unique punch to record your visit. So this is an electronic box, and the hand here has a little punch on it, an e-punch stick, and you'll punch the stick into the hole, and that records that you were actually at that location. Whether you were at the right place or the wrong place, it'll record it. So we're going to talk today about 3 key skills that you would need to master to be able to navigate successfully using our orienteering map or any other map. So understanding the map symbols is very important, and Will is going to talk a little bit more about that, as well as understanding the scale and the distance. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about orienting the map when Will has finished with map symbols and scale and distance.
Yeah, thanks. So we'll talk about what it makes an orienteering map an orienteering map. And a map is basically a 2-dimensional representation of a place. And there's lots of different styles. I would say that orienteering maps tend to be some of the more detailed, hyper-focused maps available for a lot of the parks around the state. What makes an orienteering map special are the symbols and the scale that we use. Any orienteering map, we'll talk about the legends, the scale, and the colors here. Any orienteering map will have a legend, and you can see the one for here for Highland Park. Here are all the symbols and what they mean. Also within the legend, we can find the title of the map. So here it says Highland Lake in the Twin Cities metro area. We can find information on the scale, as well as the contour line intervals. And then, because this is a published map, we can find the copyright information on it. And when we think about different maps of the state, what do you envision? What kind of maps have you seen before? The one that I think of first is the Minnesota Gazetteer Road Atlas. And what does that have? It has all the roads. It has some contour lines, but it's pretty zoomed out. You could navigate across the state well, but if you went into a state park, you would have no information available. Likewise, the DNR state park maps, they're excellent for finding natural features of particular interest, finding campgrounds or park headquarters. But if you're out in the woods, away from those things, you wouldn't know really where you are. So our maps are meant to give us some more insight on the terrain. And it will include things like individual boulders, individual cliffs, sometimes benches and fences, buildings, ponds, marshes, anything that you might encounter while walking across the landscape will be indicated on these maps. Let's go to the next slide about colors, because colors are the first thing we look at. And if you look at this Highland Lake Park map, you'll see lots of different colors going on. Each color group means something different. In an orienteering map, the brown colors indicate earth forms. So for example, the contour lines are always brown. They're indicating the shape of the landscape. If you look where Julia is moving the mouse, you can see some of the contour lines, which will indicate hills, depressions, valleys, other earth features. The black lines or symbols represent man-made objects. So a lot of the trails will be black. Buildings are black. The blue naturally represents water. A solid blue, like the Highland Lake itself, is going to be a body of water that you can't really cross. It's always got lots of water. It's deep. There are some places on the map where we see blue that's more of a checkered pattern, and that's going to represent a marsh or a swamp. The background colors of the land features will be either white, yellow, or various shades of green. And what that represents are different types of vegetation. So the white represents an open forest that you could run through. The shades of green represent thickets of various densities. So a light green, maybe you could walk through it just fine or run slowly through it. Medium green is going to be a little bit harder to get through. And by the time you get to the dark green color, that's like, you don't want to walk through that bramble patch. And then the yellow represents an open prairie without any trees. And the last color to note is magenta, and this represents the orienteering course itself, which is overlaid on top of the natural features. So in this one, you can see our course going from the start and finish area to number 1, 2, 3, onwards to number 8, and then back to the finish. And that indicates the course that one has to complete in the orienteering race. The other notable feature of the map is the scale. And so this represents the spatial distances on the map relative to reality. The most standard maps across the United States are the USGS quadrangle maps, which have a scale of 1 to 24,000. Most orienteering maps have a scale of 1 to 10,000. And that means 1 millimeter on the map is in reality 10,000 millimeters, which would be equivalent to 10 meters. Or you could say that 1 centimeter on the map is equal to 100 meters, or about a football field in reality. And it's really important to keep that spatial relationship in your mind as you're doing an orienteering course. Sometimes doing actual math is complicated. And so on the maps, you'll also find a scale bar that will be kind of a quick guide. Next slide, please. So, for example, on this map, you can find the scale bar, which is another way of illustrating the scale. And you know that the distance between these two lines is 250 meters, or about 2.5 football fields. Yeah. So those are some of the key features of the map.
Okay, so I'm going to cover orienting the map. So orienting the map is a key skill that you should use to help you understand and use the map to navigate. So above all, even above teaching you to use the compass, we'll teach you to orient your map. And a lot of advanced orienteers don't use their compass actually very often in the woods. They just simply orient the map and follow the features. So it's a super important skill. So the map should always be lined up with the surrounding features. So when you're looking at your map, the north on the map should actually match and be oriented with the actual or magnetic north on the ground. And the features on the map should actually be matched to the features that are in the terrain that you're looking at. And we're going to practice that skill with the Highland Lake Park Reserve map digitally here. So here's our map, which we've been using pieces of for other illustrations, but now we're going to use it to illustrate how to orient your map. So if we're standing here at the bottom of the map and we're holding the map, you know, one hand on the left side and one hand on the right side of this map, we're standing looking at this map, and right now it's reading the way you would read a book, right? And so that's not how you're always going to hold your map when you're in the field and in a park trying to navigate and use your map for orienteering. You need to orient the map so that, again, you're having magnetic north on the ground, in reality, match these north arrows that are on the top of the map here. And so what we're going to do, if we were standing here and we need to figure out which way is magnetic north and is our map oriented, we are going to put our compass on the map. So if this is our compass here, and our compass is showing us that north is off to the left side of our map there, not as the map arrows are pointing. And so in order to fix that, we actually need to physically turn our body and line the two of them up. So now we have our compass lined up with the map arrows on the map. So that means that if we're standing at this building in Highland Park and we're facing north, because we're facing the way our map is oriented now and the way our compass is oriented. So if we're standing outside of this building and we're looking north, we should actually see a large parking lot right in front of us. That would be having our map oriented. And so I think those of you who are at the fairgrounds will have a chance to practice this a little bit later. And you'll be able to see exactly what I mean by that and put it into practice. So this is really a key skill that we teach all the beginning orienteers the first thing when we meet them on the ground at our skills clinic, for example. So then we keep our map oriented as we move around the park. You're just going to keep shifting it all the time so that north on the compass matches north on the map, but you might not always be facing north, right? Because sometimes you might have to be going east, but you still want to keep your map oriented. So keeping our map oriented at all times, for example, if we were approaching this rock, we would see the rock in front of us in the ground, and we would see it in front of us on the map as well. And that would get us to our location.
All right, so when we're actually out doing an orienteering race, you're trying to go as quickly as you can while navigating through the woods, and you're not always on a trail. And so orienting your map, knowing where you are and knowing where you're going is the name of the game. My strategy, a very common strategy, is to keep your thumb on the map where you are at all times. And as you're rotating the map, like Julia described, you can move your thumb and you can always just know where you are in relation to the terrain around you. Sometimes we use a compass, oftentimes not, because if you can see the landscape, a hill over there, a stream over here, you can rotate your map so that it's naturally aligned and north is going north. As you're going from one control flag to the next control flag, you have to make decisions about what route you're going to take. And this is the fun part about orienteering for me, because it becomes not just about how fast of a runner are you, but how good are you at making this navigation decisions. You can take a really fast way, but it might be risky. And if you get off course, you could end up losing a lot of time. Or you could take the safe way, which is going to maybe take a little bit longer, but you know you're going to get there without problem. So these are route choices or route decisions you're constantly making. And the difficulty or the risk of each route choice you have depends on the features that you're going to encounter along the way from point A to point B. So the general strategies, next slide. One important thing to keep in mind is that a straight line between your 2 points might not be the best. The classic examples that I think about are, one, do you want to go up and over an enormous hill because it's a straighter path? Or do you want to go the long winding way that doesn't go up a hill? You have to make that decision. Another example is a swamp. Do you want to take the straight shot route right through the swamp, or do you want to go the longer way around it? It might depend on your personal preference or what you're particularly good at or bad at. If you're really good at running up hills, go for it. And again, we're going to use the terrain to try to help manage that, the risks that you might encounter. We have some technical lingo that we use in orienteering. 3 of the terms that you might hear if you're at an event are handrails, attack points, and catching features. These are those landscape features that are going to help you get from point A to point B. And we'll give a little example on the next slide here. This is kind of a generalized orienteering route. And in this scenario, we're going from the control 1 to control 2 and then control 3. The green areas are representing thickets that are going to be hard to move through. The white area represents nice, easy forest. We have a hill here, a pond with solid blue, and a marsh with striped blue, and then a trail. So going from point 1, what's that?
Oh, I said, oops, trail. I was pointing to the wrong thing.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, no. So when we're going from point 1 to point 2, what are we going to do? Is the straight line route the best? Same thing for going from 2 to 3. Can you click in the next part? As an orienteer, I might end up taking a route that looks more like this, and I might think that this is the fastest and safest route. I'm going to use a handrail, which represents the edge of this vegetation. So I might be able to see the transition from open forest to thicket. I'm just going to follow that. I'll get up to the end of that handrail and say, okay, now I just have to go northwest for a while until I see a marsh on my left, and that'll be a collecting feature. Once I move down to the eastern end of that marsh, I'm going to say, okay, I'm at the end of the marsh. This is my attack point. And from there, I know to go directly southeast into the thicket and find number 2. Going from 2 to 3, you say, okay, well, I got to go through a thicket no matter what. So I can go either east first and then up the trail, or north first and then right on the trail. Probably doesn't matter all that much. The alternative, if we click in one more time, the alternative is to take a more southerly route and say, okay, I'm going to take from 1 to 2, go on the other side of this thicket until I see the next collecting feature, which will be a hill. I'll see on the other side of the hill this little pond, and that will be my attack. So you see how we use those terminologies to help us make our route decisions. And I would just say that at orienteering events, we offer lots of different difficulty levels of courses. The beginner courses are white, we call them white or yellow, and these are generally shorter courses, mostly on trail. The orange course is intermediate, and then the advanced courses, brown, green, or red, tend to be somewhat longer, or more time during the course is spent off trail, where you really have to rely on these handrails, catching features, and attack points, or maybe there aren't really good handrails, or there aren't really good catching features, and you really have to pay close attention throughout.
All right, so our orienteering club then, you've learned a little bit about orienteering now, and you might at this point not feel especially competent to navigate yourself, but you can come to some of our events and practice these skills and learn more. So we meet about every 2 weeks in both the spring and the fall, so we call it kind of our spring season and our fall season. And we have occasional events in the, a couple of events in the winter and a few events in the summer too. So we have regular events in spring and fall, and then we have some different formats of orienteering that we offer at different times of the year. Our club has about 180 members of all ages and abilities, as I've kind of described earlier. We have, I think, our membership is like a real deal, $16 for individual and $22 per family. And we have some group rates as well, if you happen to be a group like a church group or a scout group or something like that. And the membership offers you a discount on the regular meet entry fees. And then we have some member-only events that you'd be able to participate in as a member. And the fees that we get support map development and map updates. You can imagine that the vegetation is constantly changing, and parks might do some redevelopment or something like that. And so we have to update the maps to make sure they stay accurate and are really usable for us. And then we also use those monies for outreach and to support youth participation. So in fact, some of our youth are compete in Europe or in other national events. And so we like to be able to support that and really show our care for them and their ability to navigate and do really cool, fun orienteering all over the country and the world. And you can find more about our schedule on our website at www.mnoc.org. And on our website, we also have lots of other great links that you can use to get to other different related websites. And we have, for example, Orienteering 101, so you can learn a little bit more there if you like. Lots of information to check out there. And just a little bit about our schedule. We do have our fall schedule up on our website right now. And we have a few upcoming events, including one actually tomorrow. I am not certain, I didn't hear back if registration is still open for that, but go online and check that out and see if you can register ahead of time so we have enough maps available. We know we print enough maps for everybody who's pre-registered, and if you don't pre-register, then you may or may not get a map. But if you come to one of our events, we'll always provide, we have experienced members who are happy to provide another quick primer to you on how to orienteer and, how our events operate. And then they'll share some orienteering tips with you both before and after you orienteer. You might come back with some questions and, think you could do this better, and we'll be happy to share some tips with you and then talk you through your orienteering experience and really encourage you to come back and try it again at one of our different parks. So we do have a skills clinic that we offer every spring at French Regional Park in cooperation with Three Rivers Park District. It's a great event. We get a lot of people out for that. We do a classroom presentation that is very similar to what you've learned today. And then once you come out of that classroom presentation, we have our experienced orienteers take you out on a guided white course so they can walk you through how exactly to orient your map, and they will introduce you to some of the course features. And then once you've completed that white course, the guided white course, you can go out on your own on a yellow or orange course that we've set up for people to participate on that same day. But you don't have to wait until spring to learn how to orienteer. You can, again, as I said, come to one of those meets that we have that we're offering yet this fall. So where we orienteer, we use a lot of local, regional, and state parks. So we have maps of several parks throughout the state, and even over the border into Wisconsin, we have a few maps. And so we orienteer at, for example, Lake Maria State Park, William O'Brien, Interstate, Afton, Mille Lacs Cathio, Como Park and Worth Park are venues that we use regularly. And I would note that at Worth Park, the Loppet Foundation offers their Loppet Trails Kids program. And that's a great program if you have young kids between, I believe, 8 and 12 or 13, right in that age group. They can participate in events and trainings related to running, skiing, mountain biking, and I know the kids do some adventure racing as well. So lots of really cool stuff that kids get pretty excited about and keeps them active. And then we use some of the regional parks again, like French Regional, Lebanon Hills, and Cleary Lake. And we have permanent courses at Tamarack Nature Center, Afton State Park, and Lake Elmo Park Reserve. And those permanent courses are maps that you can purchase either online through the Orienteering Club on our website, or you can purchase them at the park. And then you can take those on your own and go to the park and design your own course from the controls that are on those maps, or try to do all of the controls, but you can kind of create your own adventure with those permanent course maps. So our Orienteering Club relies real heavily on the parks to allow us to be in the park to host our events. And so we have a club member who is the liaison to the parks, and we get special use permits to use the parks on a case-by-case basis. And so we have permission to be in to set up our events and then to host the events. And so because we want to be cognizant of the privilege of using those parks, we follow policies like the Come Clean, Leave Clean policy that the DNR implements, where we try to be aware of what we're dragging into the parks and leave it back home. So cleaning our shoes and our clothing so that we're not taking invasive species from one place to another. And so we try to practice those that etiquette to be in the parks and not create conflict, and continue to be able to use the parks. And so if you're going to be using the parks, aside from one of our events, we really specifically would love you to go online and check the park rules related to off-trail use and dogs, so that you aren't abusing the privilege of being in the parks using one of our maps.
All right, we'll kind of wrap up here. And I just want to finish by saying that there's, once you've mastered the skills of orienteering, there's a lot of different ways you can put it to use. And this might mean navigating your way through the boundary waters, finding your way back home after being lost in the woods, or if you come to the MINOC events, you'll find that we have lots of different styles of orienteering races. So in this slide, you can see some folks doing a corn maze orienteering race. We have one of those every fall. I guess it's a corn maze-o. There's a ski-o. There are snowshoe-os. Lots of different styles of running-o meets. And even, if we go to the next slide, we have mountain bike-o, canoeing-o, and adventure races, which are a multi-sport O event. And you can really spend your whole life getting better at all of these if that's of interest. So I think that's all we have about orienteering and MINOC and the opportunities in Minnesota. So we'll pass it back to Craig and Benji and see what kind of questions the audience has.
It's good timing, Will. I forgot here at the fair with our live audience, we got to shut our speaker off at 12:45 for the pond talks. So I'm going to see if we can ask you a couple of questions of John about the kids orienteering stuff we have out there. And if anybody here live at the fair is interested in trying orienteering, this is a fantastic skill. We're going to meet up here just to my left here a little bit at the table, and we're going to do a little orienteering course around the DNR property here. So if anybody wants to do that, line up over here. Gwen's over here handing out some stuff to the left, and be a lot of fun. So John, you run the kids orienteering stuff for the Loppet, and this is a fantastic program. I mean, just getting out there with kids and being in the environment and learning how to read maps and compasses is great. So do you want to mention that real quick, a little bit about that? Oh, hold on a second, Jen.
That would help.
It should be working out.
Try that
Okay.
again.
We're going to try that again. The Minneapolis Loppet Foundation in Minneapolis has lots of opportunities for youth program, actually all the way through adults. But one of the programs that the Loppets started a few years ago is an orienteering program. And we offer up orienteering training and programming for people of all ages. But most of the action is for kids age 7 to 12. And that's what I coach. And it is amazing what we'll have the kids, they meet 12 times for about an hour and a half each time over, we have a spring session, a summer session, a fall session. And then we also do it in the winter on skis. But over the course of those 12 togethers, these young kids become master map readers and really have some amazing orienteering skills. And we send them out in the woods, and over the years, they all come back amazingly. So it's a great program. So if you have families with kids that want to get into orienteering and learn about it, you could check out the Loppet Foundation. I believe it's spelled Loppett. And that's some great opportunities. For anybody here at the fair today, if you want to try a little mini orienteering course, you could come up to the table, and we have that opportunity as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, so if you get kids or adults want to come out and check out a little orienteering here, again, right over to our left, we're going to turn our speaker down here. So if you want to talk to the Minnesota Orienteering Club, come on over here and talk to Peter and John and Gwen about that. So again, thank you so much for joining us out here live, and all of you in the audience. And the Minnesota Orienteering Club it was super fun to meet up with you guys again and find out all the fun stuff you're doing. So we got a couple questions that we can take from the audience here. If anybody here in the audience has a question real quick, we can do that too. I'm going to turn my mic off there for the speaker. And so we got a couple questions, Will and Julia, and one of them is from not even a question, but Amanda is joining us out there in the audience. So Amanda, hi, awesome, thank you for joining us. Will and I have been on many camping trips with Amanda, so we appreciate you joining us. Brianna was wondering, and this is a good question because that was a really good PowerPoint, Will, if you guys would be willing to share that with the attendees. And I don't know if that's easy to put on the Orienteering Club website, or if maybe she can just shoot an email to them. What's the best way to do that?
Well, I think it'll be available on the DNR recorded WebEx. It'll also be available at the French Park Orienteering Training Day. And in terms of making it available, we can check with Julia might know more than I do.
Yeah, I actually don't, but that's certainly something we can bring up at one of our board meetings.
Yeah, shoot us a message and we'll figure that out.
There you go, Brianna. You got your answer. Shoot them a message. Yeah, all these, it's a good point, Will. All these are recorded and will be on the website too, so you can join those, mndnr.gov/discover. So we have another, not such a question, but Kathleen said not a question, but I graduated a degree in geology from UMD in 2022. Learned orienteering and map on paper in the field. Go Bulldogs. So a Bulldog fan, maybe one of your students will.
I should say hi to Amanda first, and then hi to UMD graduates. All right.
That's awesome. It's good to have so many people joining us from out there in the field. So I got to put my headset on again because the speakers are dead. Now I can hear everybody again. Jeff was asking, does Minnesota Orienteering Club do any activities in the Duluth area?
The closest we have, we do a Rogaine, which is another format of navigating and orienteering. So we do Rogaines at Jay Cook State Park occasionally. That is the closest that we get.
Yeah, and I'm fairly new resident to Duluth, and I've been starting to work on making some orienteering maps for the Duluth area. So keep posted on that. Sorry, I'm distracted because in one of the video screens, I see my little niece and nephew. But yeah, we'll love to get some Duluth things going. So keep an eye on that in the future. Great question.
There are some great
Part of
parks
the-
in that area.
It's part of the great Minnesota get together, right? We get some family and friends out here. We eat some cheese curds and everybody can pop in and say hi. So we get some kids out there doing some races. So
Yeah.
Paul was wondering when you run a race, do you have staggered starts? So an estimated eliminate one team just following another through the course. It's a good question.
I'll let you take that, Will.
Oh, sure. So we have a couple different styles. At the standard orienteering meets, the participants are spread out over 5 or 6 different courses. So that's helped spread out some people. But then we also have a staggered system where individuals get a little electronic chip. And when you're ready to start, you scan the start box and then you scan your chip at every control flag throughout the woods. And so we can keep track of times individually, and it allows the starters to be staggered. Usually we try to have 1 or 2 minutes at least in between. Sometimes we do have mass start events where all the participants go at the same time. And there is some following that takes place, but usually after the first couple control flags, people naturally get pretty spread out where it's not really an issue.
Yes, depending on your skill level, you could get really spread out, right?
Yeah.
If you're not doing too well and you get lost, then you find yourself alone in the woods.
And I would just also add that following somebody has its own risks because you don't know how good of an orienteer they are necessarily, and they could take you on a wild goose chase.
Yes.
Happens.
So if I show up for this one on Thursday in Fort Snelling, are you going to be in disguise, Will? Should I not follow you? Is that what you're saying? Or
Oh, you never want to follow me.
so if anybody else has any questions, please put those in the chat. We will get to those. Oop, just had one there.
I need to get going. I'll let Julia take the rest of the questions. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for attending.
Will, nice to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk soon. Eva was asking, what do you offer for scouts in terms of badge support?
Well, that's a good question. It's pretty specific, so I don't really know, but I believe they do have an orienteering badge. And so they can, we like actually the scout leaders to come and actually support their crews. So we actually would really encourage scout leaders to come to our skills clinic and learn how to orienteer, and then bring the scouts with them, and also bring them then to some of our regular events to practice their skills. So come to the skills clinic to learn how to orienteer, and then carry that forward to come to our regular events and practice those skills and build on those skills.
Awesome.
And we offer enough events through the year that I believe that they can fulfill their badge needs, in a season of orienteering. And I'm not 100% certain of that, but I believe that's true.
Great. I see Kat and Marv behind me there. They're getting ready to do the next set here, so we're going to have to run pretty quick. But Paul asked one more question. What kind of clothing is recommended when running a course?
We always recommend being in long pants and long sleeves. They should be light but durable, because there are, especially the woods in Minnesota, we have buckthorn, we have brambles, we have prickly ash. So it can get pretty picky out in the woods, and that can be both below the waist and above the waist. And so we recommend long sleeves and long pants, even if it's pretty hot out. Most of our experienced orienteers are going to be in long sleeves and long pants. And that also helps protect you against bugs and the sun, and against poison ivy in the woods too. So
great. John chimed in with some of his best memories are orienteering with a friend. It's a great activity to get out and enjoy the outdoors. So thanks, John, for pointing that out again. And Chris is wondering about having a course set up at the Forest History Center in Grand Rapids. So I think the best thing to do, being that we're short on time, be to have Chris reach out and email the Minnesota Orienteering Club and see if somebody would be interested in doing that, helping them out,
yes,
set up a
agreed.
course up there.
Yep.
So
That'd be great.
I think with that, we're going to close down here. The band's going to start back up. Thanks, band, for letting us use your some of your sound equipment and stuff here today. It's a great way. Orienteering is just a fantastic habit to get out, exercise both your mind and body, and get outside and just enjoy a little bit of the outdoors. That's what we're here all about here at the Minnesota Outdoor Skills and Stewardship Series webinars, is just getting people outside and involved in doing some fun, cool activities across the state. And I think one of the cool things about orienteering is you get to see some things that you normally wouldn't. They're not necessarily on the beaten path. You can get off the beaten path and see some really cool areas. So that's fantastic. I hope everybody has a great day out here at the Minnesota Great Get Together, the State Fair. And those of you watching from home, have a wonderful and safe weekend. Hopefully you get outside and enjoy the great outdoors. And join us next week. It's deer season coming up fast. So we're going to talk about the deer opener and some of the new regulations and whatnot we have for deer hunting. So see everybody next week. Julia, thanks for sticking around and answering questions. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.